All right, welcome everyone. So my name is Arnold from the ETH Center, working together with Federico and many others here, also as part of the Swiss National AI Institute on this thing. So we have now the second part with a couple talks on continuing with open source models and also a few open weight models being presented. And so without further ado, I give now the stage to K2 from MBZUAI, and you have the stage. Thanks.
Good afternoon, everyone, I believe. So, by the way, I didn't know this is supposed to be a model-based presentation. So I was introduced as K2, but I didn't prepare the slide this way. I was like, oh, this is OpenLLM. Let me talk about the challenges we are facing, how difficult it is. And, so I added a bunch of slides to introduce my model at the very end. So hopefully I didn't run over time.
But it's good.
So I'm from IFM. Also, my colleague Alex is here, Institute Foundation Model for MBZUAI. We actually based in the US, not from Abu Dhabi, but we do have a lab in Abu Dhabi. So today I'm going to talk about a little bit about, I think it's the open source LLM or open source foundation model actually face like an uphill battle, in my opinion. And the background of this is generated from our own world model. It's something new that we're working. You can consider it as a more advanced version of video model, but it's not video model. So, but it could generate pretty cool video. So I'm keep using the slides whenever I present something. It's until I have better ones. Oh yeah, because I remember we need to present our model, so I added this small thing at top. We have been MBZUAI have been supporting a lot of open source language model, maybe because it's from Abu Dhabi, it's a little bit less known for people. For example, we actually helped build a Vicuna system, which is one of the first ChatGPT replica. We built LLM 360 and K2 model, which we'll introduce later. And we built a lot of different local regional language models, such as Egyptian Arabics and different Arabic dialects. So some of us started this journey about 2 years ago, I believe. So the LLM 360 logo at the time is just generated from, I believe, ChatGPT or whatever the image generation model they call. We like it because it kind of rotates. It feels like 360-degree open source is our idea. We were the first to kind of use it, try to tackle the term fully transparent open source LLM. It's actually helpful, we believe, because after what we did that, there's actually people who actually train using our model and try to replicate. That's exactly what we want to do. We started this journey because when we train our own model, we often have so many questions. Okay, we're halfway. How do we do? Are the model crashing? Is this number okay? If some of you know the good old times where MML you never go up than 25% until 60% of your training, you probably will be worried. So later we've been working on a lot of other open source projects like TST360 is our data set, M60K2 and K2V2 are towards a larger size of the model. And K2V2 just released, I think, about 2 months ago. So a little bit more about this history. What I'm seeing here is the open source is either open way or open source, actually both advancing the field in their own way. It starts way back because open source is not a new thing invented by AI people. But something I remember like 2022, like we have the Boom model, Elmo. Elmo model should be even earlier than that. I want to put Eluther there. I forgot. I typed that wrong. I'm so sorry. That should be Pythia that actually. So I probably blame Claude for this because I use Claude to build slides. I remember it's Eluther at 2022. And what changed the field is like ChatGPT came out in 2023, and a lot of the previous methods and stuff start changing. Llama come out, Apache Vicuna come out, and this is actually very impactful to the field. I was talking during the coffee break that I feel like the open weights model actually impact the field a lot more than open source model. That's my personal opinion. They kind of advance the view quicker in a way because they are stronger. Eventually, people care about the strongest model, not that you're the most open ones. I might be wrong, but that's what I've been observing these times. And then by by close to the end of 2024, end of 2023, we have LM360, which we consider the first fully open production of ChatGPT. And later we have done a bunch of things. The second wave last year was the reasoning model, where the model was developed, the method is already known from OpenAI, the Strawberry, the O1 models, but later DeepSeek actually make it possible and show people how this thing is done. And copycats, we are copycats to redo it and make everything open. But I think so I believe this is more like a torch passing, a relay between teams, where some people do the research, some people open part of it, and some people try to open more. So, okay, back to the core slides. I'm thinking about the challenge for open source. So there are some structural disadvantage that open source LLM inherently have, but this probably is not everything. I'm just mentioning a few. First is the people problem, basically how you organize the team, or which is a lot of people have been talking about. The second is resource. For open source, you don't get resource. You don't get resource for free stuff easily. And also, I think there's an evaluation gap as well. So I'm going to go into each of one quickly. So the people problem first is somehow the open source for this, when people doing the open source, these are people who are interested in research, want to advance the field, not part of company who are building products. So there will be a researcher production trade-off, and oftentimes the teams for doing this open source are small. That's why I hear from even the AI2 team, and also here, all these teams are kind of small. So there must be strong prioritization need to be done to optimize for whether you go for novelty or you go for actual LLM development. So these two forces will tear things apart. And I think different teams are choosing different approaches. On our side, we are actually choosing the second approach, which is more on the production side. So if you look at our team, we don't publish anything last year. It's not that we don't want to tell you what we do, it's just we don't have any time publishing anything. You ask Alex how many time we have writing papers in our team. And I don't allow it. So I don't allow people to write things. And secondly is the talent and continuity in the people side, which is, again, kind of everything is like a money problem, because we can't really pay that much and a lot of people come from a background like a PhD student that work with us for a short time, internships, free month, which is nice, but a lot of time that doesn't correspond to a longer cycle. For example, when I discuss with PhD about how do we study this MOE scaling law, I say, here's a grand plan of how you can do this. And he was like, I'm just here for 3 months. I can't finish your thing. I need a paper. So unfortunately, I can't convince people to work on this a lot. So this is the second thing. By the way, I'm only raising questions. I don't have solutions. And third one is the LLM production pipeline. The LLM production pipeline is a very long, complex pipeline, as many people have pointed out. The cross-stage dependency between these actually strong. Sometimes your final decision, your final model inference quality, the speed of that depends on your early model design. If you realize, wait, I didn't use an efficient attention mechanism, or my model cannot be quantized, then you probably screw at the inference time already. So this means the team need to collaborate very, very closely, which is a little bit hard for open source research group, which is across globe and sometimes, again, short-term interns and stuff like that. And that's a pretty famous product manager term, which call you ship your org chart, right? So the org chart for company is clear, but org chart for open source group is very unclear. It could be all kinds of shape, depending on where people come from. So given that, but large-scale distributed collaboration still exists. Like some of my favorite collaboration. The first one is Datacom, which have multiple versions of thing already. Like Louis has done a great job by making the whole community working on the same thing. And then again, Eluther, like the Eluther Common Pile project recently, which kind of have a lot of institute. By the way, we are not there, not because we don't want to join. IFM doesn't exist when they started Common Pile. I will introduce IFM a little bit later. Second is the resource gap, which is more clear, but besides the money gap, like the compute gap, there's also something about data sets and licensing. So people are talking about the European guide restriction, but even without that, sometimes the data can be so open source model are more prone to the licensing problems, and even not consider licensing problem like the companies normally have their unique source of data from their own channels in some ways. So open source must kind of navigate through all this and contribute a good model. The Common Power project I just mentioned before was a good attempt at this, but I do still notice a big gap, well, not big, let me rephrase it, a gap between the Common Power dataset versus typical dataset. So yeah, and then the cost part, which everybody should know, like open source, most open source projects are not that rich in compute. And this is not just about training the largest model, it's also about experiment. We have observed a bunch of things. For example, some property differs across scale. That means if you don't have experience on every single scale, you actually don't sometimes mix the property. For example, data mixing is different across scales from smaller even to 7 billion model. And we haven't tested larger, but we believe there's something there. Secondly, there's something that's kind of very crazy to us is sometimes you need very high token per parameter to validate some results. We have seen results that work crazily under like 100 TPP, but doesn't work after 100. So 100 TPP is a realm that most experiment will not go to, like unless you have like a crazy resource. I think the AI2 team also shared with me some ideas similar to that realm too, like basically the ITP validation. So these means like even experiment-wise, a lot of times the cost is very prohibitive. And then on the alignment safety side, by the way, this is my own experience. I know that many teams are very focused on alignment safety, but our team, due to a lot of pressures and delivery timelines, sometimes our alignment and red teaming system is kind of simple, I would say. I wouldn't use the other like negative word. Simple is the word I would choose for ours. So we kind of often deprioritize them in like resource constraint scenarios. So another thing is the evaluation gap. I'm not sure whether this people have been thinking about this, but on the evaluation side, for open source model, one thing that's missing actually no real world usage, right? So I don't think any closed model or data provider care about benchmark damage. They probably care, but what they care is the user experience, how many new users they will get. So they actually have some sort of commercial real world usage signals, and open source model doesn't have, which is similar to, which I will go to is what I mean by the feedback. Right, so any model like normally go through that kind of simple cycle, but if the user if you don't have user feedback, you cannot complete this cycle. But for open source models, sometimes you don't have the endpoint, or even if you do have the endpoint, people don't use it that much. People have a free ChatGPT out there, right? So the user feedback part is kind of a big problem here. There are other projects that kind of distribute data that help this, but I think still a pretty big problem for us. So we've been trying this thing. So one thing we try is we build a data set called TST360, and we write really, really long blog posts, and we say, okay, people might read it and give us some feedback. That's a mistake because this is really long. Nobody wants to read it. We get no feedback. It has been out for a year. It has only like 100 likes. So yeah, we've been attempting open source approaches, but we've been trying to document every single step of the data set, but it's like maybe the wrong approach. I think, I definitely underestimate how much time needed to read this thing. There comes our IFM, Institute Foundation Model. I wouldn't say IFM is like our solution to all the problems, but it's our like attempt to solve these things. And I mentioned we kind of started the early stage of M360, but it has been in a kind of a small research group with PhD students and professors and so on. So finally, we found IFM last May. So it's about sorry about my math, 9 months now. So we are considering, can we form a dedicated research org to at least overcome some of the problems? For example, we could release products and try to collect feedbacks and also try to open source everything in the. So it's like a structured answer to all the problems being seen. So, I have the math here. So IFM have been launched for 9 months. It's a dedicated organization for open foundation model research. And also, we are trying to advance a little bit beyond LLM, because the name itself is not L, is all not ILM, it's IFM. So we are doing a bunch of different foundation models as well. Actually, we've been seeing some success. So the LM360 team have been only releasing like 3 models or 4 models in the past 2 years. But after the IFM is formed, I guess because we have paid people, the last year become quite fruitful for us. So we have been releasing things like one next to the other. So the kind of value of IFM is we want to do open foundation model, keeping our value of the 360. We want to advance the frontier, which is something we haven't done before, like doing something else, like not like the model, or maybe a different type of. And of course, the responsibility. So these are some projects I already mentioned a little bit before. So we have been thinking like a bigger picture of research now, not just like the model. Can we go from language to something else? For example, here, can we go for language to like understand the space, and in the future understand and do multi-agency, for example, multiple agents working in the same space and stuff like that. We want to see whether we can have multiple layers of like towards general intelligence. So first, like I mentioned, we continue our M360 open source mission from that. This is the recent M360 release, K2V2. We still release everything we can. And for example, even the weight biases loss of whatever happened in the middle. So I kind of need to brag about our model because I realized this is a model building workshop. So I get a slide from my friend just now and inserted to the slide. And so luckily we have been evaluated by artificial intelligence, which gave us artificial analysis, which gave us a third-party review of our model. So on the openness part, we are ranked first, like on par with OMO. We have our reasoning model are keep improving over our releases. And actually, if you look at the sizes, it's actually pretty comparable to many closed source model if you consider the size class. And this is one of the surprising results we get. After we submit the model, the AI comes back saying you have the world's lowest hallucination rate. I was like, what? Like, we didn't do that. Well, don't tell people we didn't do that. We you guys recorded late. Yeah. Okay, we designed a very dedicated approach to make sure our hallucination rate is kind of low. But yeah, it's actually beating, like these are comparing to real advancing model. That's Claude Opus there. So it's not like a random model. So, well, at least we do have like some confidence that this approach is working and everything is progressing to a general good direction. So this is K2 V2, and we are on this like preferred quadrant where it's like both having a high openness and high intelligence index. We're trying to push us as far as here if possible. Like I said, we not only build just the English model, we also build a bunch of other things. For example, this is the JICE. So far, we should be the best open Arabic model in both size class, under 20B or larger than 20B. Our JICE 70B is the best model there. but probably still have a gap between the closed models. Yeah, and then one important thing that we're working on is the PAN model, which is advancing AI beyond language. So these are all the generation and use case from the PAN model, which you can see that we are, in addition to language, we're trying to see whether we can do a lot of other things with it. Why it's not moving? It's moving on mine.
It's moving.
Okay. Okay, I don't know what happened, but you can see if you can use it for industrial design. You can use to simulate rare events on self-driving scenarios. We have the first release of PAN last year as well. And coming soon, we will have the PAN game release, which is a little bit similar to Google Genie. So where you can see that we can simulate multiple game environments by controlling character. So yeah, this is I think it's the same input across different scenarios. And one of the key advantage of our model is the long-term consistency, which basically means the objects will still be there when you look around, which is simple for real world, but pretty hard for a generative model. Yeah, and then recently back to the kind of problem we are seeing, we want to building towards feedback. We want to close the deployment loop from wave release to product so that we can actually get some real feedback and to improve the model. Actually, we do have our app out there, but I don't think there's a lot of users because there's so many free app you can use. But you know, at least I need to show it here as a small advertisement. So basically, that's pretty much of the talk. So I would say at the end, I want to just say I've been thinking how open source will work, how different collaboration work. I don't have an answer, so that's why I'm joining this workshop. But I'm just trying to put down something. Basically, we think we can open source the process, not just the product. But there are a few things I think we are trying to do as the principles. For example, like open source the training logs and everything. These are things that people are doing now. Can we do more about that? I hope today's discussion can help a little bit. And thank you. This is a nice building from our campus in Abu Dhabi.
Okay, time for one question. Okay.
People are currently involved in IFM.
So because these two projects, we actually have 25 on the language model now, and about 4 to 15 on the world model side, the PAN model.